Nishkam. So it is based on the knowledge of the soul, that I am not the body, so that means I am not the doer or the enjoyer. So the knowledge of the soul comes from what is known as Sankhya. So Sankhya is basically analytics, and Sankhya is that you analyze the various elements that are there in this material world, and if the process of analysis is thorough, you will inevitably reach to the conclusion that there is a soul that is existing. So so there are 24 elements. You look at each of the 24 elements. You look at the attributes of the 24 elements, and as you look at each one of these attributes, you can establish a certain material characteristic to it. That this earth, this is water, this is fire, this is ether, this is light, this is heat. You can attribute certain physical characteristics to it, but as you keep saying, okay, this is this, this is this, what remains after that, the 25th element, is the soul. So through the process of Sankhya, you get what is known as Swagyan, Atmagyan, the knowledge of the self. Based on that knowledge, you develop detachment. That if I'm not the body, then why should I be so much attached to the activity that I am doing? Why should I be so invested in the results of the activity that I will get? So this is called Jnana-ashrit Nishkam, based on Sankhya. In the 5th chapter, Krishna elaborates what is known as Bhakti-ashrit Nishkam. So after you have gone through the 24 material elements, gone through the 25th element, which is the soul, you then come across the 26th element, which is Krishna. And the relationship with Krishna is that Krishna is great and I am small. So Bhakti-ashrit Nishkam is that because I am the servant of Krishna, everything that I am doing is actually being done for his pleasure, and he is the one who is empowering me to do it. So automatically both the notions go away, that I am the enjoyer and I am the doer. So that is why the title of the 5th chapter is Karma Yoga, Action in Krishna Consciousness. So one is from the platform of material detachment, one is from the platform of spiritual attachment. So even though the instructions look very, very similar, the symptoms may also look similar. A person who is detached may display the same kind of equanimity between the various dualities in the material world. Impetus is different. The impetus of one is that I am not the body. Impetus of the other is that I am the eternal servant of Krishna. So in order to help Arjun become more strongly anchored in this concept, Krishna also talks to Arjun about the modes of material nature. So what does Krishna say about the modes of material nature? How does he introduce them to Arjun?
I am not the controller, but the modes of nature.
Exactly. Right. So Krishna says that everything that is being done is done by the modes of material nature. So if Arjun has any vestige of this notion that I am the doer, Krishna is disambiguating that ultimately. So same point that he made in the 3rd chapter, where he says Prakriti kriya manani gunakarmani sarvasha ahankar vimuda atma kartahamini. So Prakriti kriya manani, everything is being done by the modes of material nature. And in the 5th chapter he says nadati kasyat tvapi, that all these activities are not being done by you. And then he says that you are not doing it and I am not doing it. So he makes it clear that Arjun understands, so that Arjun does not get into this notion, this fatalistic notion, that everything is being done by the will of the Lord. So then whether you do sinful or pious activities, then you just say, oh, it's the will of the Lord, what to do. God makes me do whatever is happening. And sometimes we talk to people like, you encourage them to take to bhakti, and then say that, when God wants me to take to bhakti, I'll take to bhakti. That, if he's, it's a form of a pseudo renunciation. That it's a mode of ignorance renunciation. That you're basically not taking accountability for your action, but you're moving it over to Krishna. So Krishna is saying that he says such people are under illusion, who think that I am doing the activities. Ultimately, everything is being done by the modes of material nature. And when Krishna talks about the whole concept of spiritual attachment, then we discuss that Krishna does not take Arjuna directly to the highest form of spiritual attachment. He introduces him to first a more relatable and a lower form of spiritual attachment, which is the wish realization, which is the Brahman realization. So first thing that Krishna introduces Arjuna is that you see me everywhere. You see me in nature, you see me I am the energy that is there everywhere. And it's a good segue, because from a materialistic perspective, what we see is the grandeur of nature. We see the mountains, we see the trees, we see the power of nature. We see the mighty ocean, and we see its nurturing power, we see its destructive power. So nature is something that fascinates all of us. And then Krishna says, in that nature see me. In this whole force that is driving the universe, see me. So it's an easy segue, that we are already fascinated with nature, and Krishna presents himself. Now it's not that it is false. It's not that Krishna is just doing it opportunistically, because this whole world is in a way a manifestation of Krishna's energy. So it is factual, and Krishna again does it so that the transition is not very abrupt. Now, along with the Brahman realization, Krishna introduces another concept also, because he is moving Arjuna from the material to the spiritual. So he speaks about the Brahman realization. He also introduces Arjuna to the Paramatma realization. So he speaks two verses that are geared more towards Paramatma realization. So one who meditates on Brahman realization sees the presence of Krishna everywhere. One who is meditating on the Paramatma realization sees the will of Krishna everywhere. And one who is meditating on Krishna's personal form sees the mercy of Krishna everywhere. So Krishna, he is taking him from the Brahman realization to the Paramatma realization. And that verse which I asked you to memorize, which is the verse on the Samadrishti. What's the verse? Vidya vinaya sampane brahmane gavi hastani shuni cheva swapake cha pandita samadarshana. So samdarshan means seeing all the living entities as the same. So a person who is at the platform of Atma Gyan, at the platform of the soul, even though he sees people, because he does not see the body, he sees the soul. He sees them as the same, but he still sees a difference in them, because he sees the body as a symptom of the desires of the soul. He sees the body as a symptom of the past activities of the soul. So when he sees the Brahman, even though he is seeing the soul, but he realizes that the soul has done pious activities. That is why it has got the body of a Brahman. When he sees a swapaka, a dog eater, then he understands that this person has become that because of the way that the soul has desired. So there is still some distinction that a person at the platform of Atma Gyan makes. The person at the platform of Paramatma Gyan, he is not able to make this distinction, because along with the soul, he sees the super soul. So when you see your worshipable entity in a very close relationship with somebody else, then any sense of discrimination automatically goes away. So let's assume that you have a parent that you're very, very attached to, and then you see then let's assume it's your mother, and then you see your mother being very affectionate to 3 other children. Automatically you'll be affectionate to the 3 other children because of the implicit love that you have for your mother. So the Paramatma realization basically drives this sense of equanimity through the understanding that they are dear to, they are accompanied by Paramatma. So that is the thought that Krishna puts in the mind of Arjun, which will then lead him into the 6th chapter, which is Dhyana Yoga. The whole purpose of Dhyana Yoga is Paramatma realization. So in 6th chapter he has introduced Arjun to the symptom of Paramatma realization, which is Samdrishti, that the person does not make any difference. He is, so in one of the verse he says that the person has a Samdrishti. In the other verse that he says that this person is the benefactor and the well-wisher of everybody. So those are the 2 verses that he talks about, from the notion of getting Arjuna aware that in addition to the Brahman, there is the Paramatma also. So because the 6th chapter talks more about the Paramatma realization, before we start the chapter, I just want to spend a few minutes talking about the Paramatma, that what exactly is Paramatma. Krishna does not explain in too much details. In the 15th chapter he will speak more about the Paramatma, but the Srimad Bhagavatam speaks much more about the Paramatma. So it's explained over there that when Krishna is in the spiritual world, in his original form, which is Krishna's Tu Bhagwan Swayam, the 2-armed form, which he plays a flute and then he has a peacock feather, he does not really do any work. He delegates. Prabhupada says he's like a CEO of the company. CEO doesn't really do any work, even though it's not really true. The reason I was late today is because we were waiting for from one of the companies that we work with. We are having a dispute with them, and we were waiting for a response from the CEO of the company. And since morning, we've been trying to track him down. He's just in one meeting after another meeting, and then he was out there for 10 minutes, and then he said, I have to go back to another meeting. So I was thinking about this, that this is not the CEO that Prabhupada was talking about. But Krishna is like that. All he does is he has fun, Anandamai. All that he does is have fun. But in order to maintain the material and the spiritual world, he expands. So the process of expansion from Krishna also is it's interesting but a little complicated. We won't go into that. I'll just go very, very briefly. That Krishna expands into, first expansion of Krishna is Lord Balaram. Lord Balaram expands into what is known as Chaturvyu, the quadruple expansion, 4 personalities. So these are all Krishna, Vishnu Tattvas they are called. So the quadruple expansion is Vasudev, Anirudh, Pradyumna and Sankarshan. So from the Sankarshan of the first Chaturvyu comes Lord Narayan. And Lord Narayan, the 4-armed form, he is presiding over the different planets of the spiritual world and served by his devotees. From Lord Narayan comes the 2nd Chaturvyu, same personalities, but as part of the 2nd Chaturvyu. all these personalities are in the spiritual world, and they are there to engage with the eternally liberated souls.
Before you go further, do they have separate planets in the spiritual world? Or
They have several planets.
They have separate planets.
They have several planets, and they have separate pastimes. So they are all. So the spiritual world has billions and billions of planets, and they're all presided by by the expansions of Krishna. Krishna has his own planet called Krishna Loka or Golok Vrindavan. But in addition to that, there are billions of planets, because there are so many living entities that are living in different planets. They have nothing to do with the material world. Now, for the purpose of the interaction with the material world, and the Sankarshan in the second Chaturvyu, he expands into Lord Vishnu. So Lord Vishnu is fully, he's Krishna Tattva, he's fully spiritual, but the Vishnu Tattvas come in order to take care of the material world. So Sankarshan of the second Chaturvyu, he expands into Mahavishnu. Mahavishnu is also known as Karunodakshaya Vishnu. So Karunodakshaya Vishnu, he is the cause of the material world. And every time he breathes out, a universe is created. And every time he breathes in, the universe is annihilated. So between one breath of Mahavishnu, a whole lifespan of Lord Brahma is lived. So Lord Brahma lives for a very, very long time. He lives for 311 trillion 40 billion years. Very, very long time by our measurement. But he is one breath of Mahavishnu. So every universe that is created, Mahavishnu expands into Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, and he enters in the universe. So when Garbhodakshaya Vishnu enters into the universe, at the time the universe is empty. So from his body, it is said that the perspiration of his body, it creates what is known as the causal ocean. And on the causal ocean, which covers the lower half of the universe, Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, he expands into Anant Shesh, and then he lies on Anant Shesh in Yoga Nidra, and he is being served by his eternal consort Lakshmi Devi. So that is the very often picture of Lord Vishnu that we see, that he is lying on Ananta Shesh. Ananta Shesh is like this, and his lotus feet are being massaged by Lakshmi Devi. There is another thing that we also see with Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, which is the lotus flower. So then, for the purpose of furthering the creation in the material world, a lotus flower emanates from the navel of Mahavishnu. And who appears at the top of the lotus flower? Lord Brahma. So Lord Brahma is the first jiva. He is the first living entity that enters into the material world. So when Lord Brahma is so to speak born, he is in complete ignorance. So it is said Brahma is born as a Shudra, because that is our nature, that all of us are born as Shudras. The difference between a Shudra, the definition of a Shudra is one who does not know. So Lord Brahma is born and he has no idea what he's supposed to do. So first he looks around in all the four directions repeatedly to find out what's going on. And because he looks around the four directions so often, he gets the four heads by which he looks at the four directions. Then he travels down the stem of the lotus flower. So Lord Brahma is a yogi. So he is born with yogic powers, and it is said that yogis can travel at the speed of thought. So he travels for thousands and billions of miles at the speed of thought, but is not able to locate the the root. So the lotus flower, the stem of the lotus flower that rises from the bottom of the universe goes all the way till the top of the universe. And Brahma, he goes down into the stem and he keeps going down and he's not able to find the root, so then he goes back up again. And then he hears two syllables. He hears the word ta, pa. And because of his previous understanding, so we are all born with certain propensities that we get from our previous lives, and we see that as children are growing up, some children naturally take to sports, some children naturally take to swimming, some children naturally take to music. We call it swabhav. Every child has born with a certain nature, and same thing with Brahma. He's a living entity, so he's born with that. He's born with a certain intrinsic nature, and one acquires the position of Brahma by the virtue of performing severe austerities. Brahma is a yogi, so he acquires that position by performing severe austerities in the previous life. So he's very naturally inclined to perform austerities. And when he hears the word tapa, he begins to perform austerities, and for thousands and thousands of celestial years he performs this austerities. So after being purified by the performance of austerities, he gets the vision of Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. And Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, at that point, he initiates him. He initiates him by giving the mantra in Brahma's one of his 8 years. So he speaks the mantra. According to some, the mantra is the Shabda Brahman, Om. According to some, it's the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, and according to some, it's the Gayatri Mantra, or maybe it's all of them. But after he is initiated, Lord Brahma, he meditates on the mantra for a long time, and then, having gotten the mercy of Krishna, he starts the process of creation. So when he's creating the universe, when he's creating the planets, at that time, the jivas enter. The souls like us, they enter into different bodies that are created by Brahma. And as the jivas enter the body, who enters along with the jivas? Lord Vishnu. He enters. So Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, he now expands into Kshirodakshaya Vishnu. So Kshirodakshaya Vishnu is Paramatma. So he is the third of the expansions of Lord Vishnu. So the position of Paramatma is that Paramatma gives us what we desire and what we deserve. So based on these two things, the Paramatma is constantly fulfilling our wishes, because the spirit soul, it has no understanding of matter. It does not know how to manipulate the body, how to manipulate matter. It's in a completely foreign environment. The soul has no understanding of matter. All it can do is it can desire. But ultimately it's the super soul that is making all that happen. Because if it was left to the soul, then the soul would do whatever it wanted with matter. There would be no reason why a person cannot fly. There would be no reason why a person cannot go into fire. If it was happening just by the desires of the soul, then there would be no limitations on how the soul is manipulating matter. But the soul cannot manipulate matter. It's Kshirodakshaya Vishnu who's manipulating it based on what the soul is desiring and what the soul deserves. So because there is such an intimate relationship between the soul and the super soul, the Paramatma is also known as the super soul, there is a whole limb of spirituality which is focused on realizing the presence of the Paramatma. So realizing the presence of the Paramatma happens through Astanga Yoga. And the 6th chapter, which is also called Dhyana Yoga, is a very, very high level synopsis that Krishna puts in over here. And he puts in here for a couple of reasons. He puts it because it's a bona fide path in spirituality. He puts it because it's a natural succession to karma and Gyan. And he puts it because Arjun, even though Arjun does not explicitly ask for it, he puts it because if he did not, then Arjun would have asked him about it. Because Arjun had initially indicated that I'll go to the forest and this and that. So what does one do? Go to the forest to meditate. So he puts it there to satisfy Arjun's potential query. He also puts it there to show how difficult it is. So in the Padma Purana it is said that in every age there is a recommended process for perfection. That what's that verse? Kritayate dhyayate Vishnu treta yagyate sama dvapare paricharyayam kalauta dhari kirtana. So Kritaya dhyayate Vishnu. In the age of Krita, which is Satyug, the recommended way is Dhyana Yoga. That's why you see in the ancient ages, sages like Vishwamitra and Markandeya Rishi, they spend long time in meditation. That was the recommended way. Then in Treta Yajate, perform yagyas, elaborate yagyas, like you see Lord Ram doing Vashvamegha Yagya. Took him 1 year to prepare for the yagya, and this is in Treta Yuga. And the king of the whole planet, and took him 1 year to prepare for the yagya. So very, very elaborate, hundreds and thousands of priests, different categories, specializations of priests, and each one they chant the mantras perfectly. If there is a truti in any mantras, there are different set of priests that are hearing it and correcting it. The paraphernalia is very, very specific and exclusive. So that was there in Treta Yuga. Then Dwapare Paricharyayam. In Dwapar Yuga, temple worship. That the whole towns were built around temples, and the king would support the temple. So, and just like the king takes taxes from everybody, now for like army or whatever it is, at the time the king would take taxes to support the temples, and everybody would congregate around the temples. So the festivals were celebrated in the temples, the deity worship was done in the temples, and everybody would assist in the temple worship. And Kalautadhari Kirtana. That in the age of Kali, all this is not possible. That it's not possible to do Dhyana Yoga, it's not possible to do Yagyas, it's not possible to have elaborate temple worship. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given us the process of chanting the holy name. It says Kalera Dosha Nidhe Rajan Astiya Eka Mahaguna Kirtana Deva Krishnasya Mukta Sang Param Praja. The Kalera Dosha Nidhe Rajan. That this age of Kali, it's an ocean of faults. Astiya Ek Mahaguna. It's one big benediction. That Kirtana Deva Krishnasya. Just by the chanting of Krishna's name, you get two things. That you get Astiya Ek Kalera Dosha Nidhe Rajan Astiya Ek Mahaguna Kirtana Deva Krishnasya Mukta Sang Param Praja. So Mukta Sang means you get freed of this association with the material world. And Param Rajat means that after being freed from this material world, you get supreme destination, which is Krishna's spiritual world. So even though the Bhagavad Gita is spoken for the denizens, Krishna is speaking at the end of the Dwapar Yuga, when Kali Yuga is starting, but that's why he does not spend a lot of time in this, but he wants us to understand why is it there, Why can't we do it? How do we understand other people doing it? How do we understand previous personalities doing it? So I'll take a pause here and see if there's any questions or comments.
Just show on the pictures.
Yeah, if you can, sure.
These are my Sunday school children. This is the Garbhodakshay Vishnu. Sorry, the Mahavishnu or Karunadakshay Vishnu, who's lying on the causal ocean and he's breathing in and breathing out. Can you guys see?
Can you understand?
Yeah. And he's breathing in, breathing out these universes. And this is Krishna expanding. Then in these universes, again, he expands into Garbhodakshay Vishnu, which is this picture. Oh, can you find the picture? There we go. So this is Garbhodakshay Vishnu lying on Ananta Shesh, Lakshmi Ji at his lotus feet serving him, and then from his navel comes out the lotus flower on which Brahma is born. See that? And then this is the super soul. Vishnu, yes, with his 4 arms and 4 things in his hands. Oh, actually, this is super soul.
Yeah, that's also super soul.
That was Kesha with Ananta Shesh, right? This is super soul.
No, but that is also super soul.
This one, Kesha, picture?
That's also super soul.
Ananta Shesh.
Yeah, that's one of the descriptions.
That's one?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is, I usually show this one. So this is the super soul in our hearts, in all our hearts. Shiva Laksha Vishnu. Really nice picture. What these devotees have done.
First photo I did not see.
Huh?
First photo.
The Mahavishnu? 44. Yeah, it's really nice and easy to understand. It's so scientific that it's so easy to explain to others then how universes are created and what creation is all about. This is Mahavishnu. All Karunadakshay Vishnu. Yeah, from his pores come out universes. He's breathing in, breathing out, annihilation and creation.
So it's multiple universe, not just one universe.
No, multiple. From all his pores there are universes coming out, and when he breathes in, they get annihilated. It's a long breath out, exhale, and long inhale.
Stress for billions of years.
Just stresses for billions of years.
Yes,
Any question? Is there any particular meaning, special meaning when why Brahma is depicted from being born from the navel and through the lotus? What is the importance of lotus and here? I mean, he could have been born. Krishna would have just given him birth or in any way, womb, and here you go. What is there any special meaning behind it?
In the third canto, there is a more technical description of the construction of the material universe. So that describes how all the planets in the universe. There are 14 planetary systems in the universe. So how the planetary systems are aligned in the universe, and they form a lotus flower. So the whole universe is basically clustered around this lotus flower. Brahmalok, where Brahma is living, is the topmost planet at the top of the universe, and all the other planets, they are clustered around the so like when you do the Gayatri, you say the Om Bhurva Bhava Swaha, talking about the 3 planetary system, right? So the higher planetary system are and I forget the exact, but there are some that are considered to be the whirl of the lotus, the center of the lotus, and then there are some that are the petals of the lotus, and there are some that are the stem of the lotus. So that gives the more technical description about how the material universe is actually like a lotus flower. There's Brahma Loka at the top of it.
But there is also a concept of Brahman, which is like the universe is in an egg form. So how does the two reconcile? The lotus and the concept of oval form. Which I think
So the covering of the universe is oval. Right? The covering is oval. Within that covering, the lower half of the covering is filled with water. and that is where Garbhodaksha Vishnu is lying. The upper half of the universe is where all the planets appear, and that's where it takes the form of a lotus with Brahmalok at the apex of it. Yeah? Prabhu?
Yeah. A question regarding Paramatma. When we say like Paramatma is in our heart and it fulfills our desire, so then the prayers are, do you need the words in the prayers? Because Paramatma knows everything. Like say I desire something, I want to move back to BC. Then definitely he knows. So why there are specific prayers? We do pray also like Hare Krishna Mahamantra or any other prayers we do, either demigod to even to Krishna.
Right. So when you're praying to demigod, that's a whole different thing, right? The demigods don't know, right? So yeah, you pray to them and get whatever it is. In terms of Krishna, the whole notion of prayers is explained in the Bhagavatam as a symptom, as a manifest symptom of love. Right? Prabhupada would say that the mother knows what the child needs, but when the child comes and asks, then the affection of the mother, it increases manifold. Right? The mother knows the child needs food. The child comes and says, Maya, give me food. Then the affection of the mother increases many folds. The notion of prayers is more so when you're praying to Krishna in the personal form. Right? That's when it's a relationship that you're building, and if you follow the conversations in the Bhagavatam, every conversation to Krishna begins with a prayer. Right, right in the first canto, second chapter, there is this Arjun driving the chariot or sitting in the chariot. Krishna is driving the chariot. They're running after Ashwathama, and then Ashwathama throws the Brahmastra. Arjun sees the Brahmastra coming towards him, and then he turns to Krishna and he starts praying to Krishna that you are the source of the universe, you are the end of the universe, you are the well-wisher, nothing is possible without your will. And then while I was reading it, I was thinking that, if I saw a Brahmastra coming towards me, the first thing I would do is, Krishna, take care of the Brahmastra. Right? But no, Arjun says that to Krishna, that what do you want me to do with the Brahmastra? Arjun himself is capable of taking care of the Brahmastra, but he wants guidance from Krishna. But he says that after 4 or 5 verses, but a short prayer. When the Devas go to the Shweta Dweep, when they are being harassed by the demons, before they whatever they ask, they recite these elaborate prayers. Most of the time when they go to Garbhodaksha Vishnu, they recite the Pusha Shukta prayers. You see that they recite the Pusha Shuktas, which is elaborate glorification of the Lord. And then they say that this is what it is. It's for our purification, and it is also to understand, to invoke Krishna's mercy. There, not that it is lacking, but in a relationship, activities are very important. Right? If you're married, you have to keep telling your wife you love her. Right? You can't just say that I'm taking care of you, I'm paying the bills, you're living in my house, aren't you? So you should understand, you won't have a long marriage in that way, right? So you have to. So even though it is there in actions, you still have to say it, right? So that is the it brings forth the sweetness of the relationship.
This also means the yogis cannot, they realize Paramatma, maybe, they can see, but they can't have any relationship with Paramatma.
They could. We'll read a little bit about it. Right. So Dhyana Yoga is basically, it's a means to an end. Just like karma is the means to an end, Jnana is means to an end, Dhyana is also means to an end. It depends on what the desire of the doer is. So take the example of Dhruv Maharaj, right? He's a yogi. He was a yogi, right? He was standing doing meditation, but what was he meditating on? meditating on the personal form of Vishnu. Right. And that's what he got. He got personal audience of Vishnu. So from practical perspective, he's a devotee. Even though he was following that path, but he was not interested in Paramatma. He was interested in Lord Vishnu. So ultimately, it's a means to an end. The end depends on what you desire, and that Krishna speaks about more later. Akshay Prabhu, you had a question?
So, Prabhuji, the Brahman or the egg that Sunil Prabhu was mentioning about. So there, based on my understanding, there are many Brahmas, right? The Brahma that we know of is the four-faced Brahma for
Yes.
our universe.
Yes.
So does that mean that there are many Garbhodaksha Vishnus as well?
Yes. In every universe, there is an expansion of Krishna as Garbho. See, just like there are many Kshodaksha Vishnus, right? As many souls there are that many Paramatmas. So, similarly, as many universes there are as many Garbhodaksha Vishnus, and there are as many Brahmas in each other. In Dwarka and Krishna, in the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam, there is a pastime that once Brahma went to meet Krishna in Dwarka. And then he goes to the Dwarpa and he tells that, can you tell Krishna that Lord Brahma has come to meet? So the guards go in and they come back and then they say, which Brahma? And the Brahma says, what do you mean, which Brahma? Brahma, the Brahma. So I said, okay, just wait a minute. So they wait a minute and then they go back again. And when Brahma goes in again, then he sees Krishna sitting on a throne and surrounding him are hundreds and thousands of Brahmas. And actually, our universe is one of the smallest universes, because apparently the minimum heads that Brahma has is 4 heads. In some of the larger universes, he has 400 heads. In some of the even larger universes, he has 4 million heads. So when Brahma sees all these Brahmas with millions of heads and much more effulgent, and at that time Brahma feels like, he understands his position with respect to Krishna. And Krishna, of course, did it as mercy to Brahma so that he doesn't develop pride. But there is a Brahma in every universe, and there is a Garbhodaksha Vishnu in every universe.
And so the Mahavishnu is only one?
Mahavishnu is only one. Because there is only one material creation. And Mahavishnu is the source of that material creation. Right? So one way to understand this is that because the material world is jad. Jad means that it is dead. So for it to do anything, it needs to be sustained by intelligence. So the whole material creation, the super soul for the whole material creation is Mahavishnu. The super soul for each universe is Garbhodaksha Vishnu. And the super soul for each living entity is Kshodaksha Vishnu. Because unless Krishna is there, the material, because it's an unnatural condition, it can't exist. So that is why Krishna is personally there, making it exist. So why does matter behave in a certain way? Srila Prabhupada in another purport writes that what establishes the law of gravitation? What establishes that the speed of light is going to be only so much? What establishes inertia? There has to be somebody establishing it. All these rules are there. Who's establishing, who's enforcing these rules? Only some kind of intelligence can establish this rule. Otherwise, one piece of matter might say that, I follow a different, for me the gravitational constant is different. Other piece of matter says, it's different. The whole world is in chaos. So by the presence of Karunadaksha Vishnu, the whole material existence is existing. By the presence of Garbhodaksha Vishnu, the whole universe is existing. And by the presence of Kshodaksha Vishnu, the souls are existing in the material world. That helps, Prabhu?
Are the number of souls constant?
They are constant, but they are infinite. So the understanding is that just like Krishna is eternal, the souls are eternal. They don't have a beginning. There is no point in time when you can understand that a soul appeared or took birth, and there is no count of the souls also.
Is it the limitation of our minds the thing that anything you see in the universe, or they are all limited? Like we have in mind that we cannot fathom what is is unlimited. Is it our limitation of our mind?
To some extent, they say, I believe it's in Brahma Samhita, where they say that one can count all the grains of sand in a desert, and there are more souls than that. Now, from a strictly mathematical purpose, it is finite, but it's more of a metaphor that there are so many souls that you can count and count and count, and there still will be souls there.
So the souls, if they are forever, then that means they are separate from the universes that are coming and going.
Yes.
Into the universe.
Yes. When the universes get destroyed, the souls go to a different universe.
So what exactly is the form of this? Are the pure energy? So is it like electronic cloud? What it is exactly?
Soul is a person. It's a form. It's a person. The soul is a person, right? It is Sat Chit and Anand.
When we die, obviously this body will never get a soul with us. When you say soul goes away, what exactly is that concept? Is it energy?
It's not energy. It's a discrete. When the soul goes back to the spiritual world, it has a specific form by which it relates to Krishna. There are some souls that are human form, some souls that are cows, some souls that are birds, some souls that are grains of sand, some souls that are trees, leaves. So every soul has a certain form in which it serves Krishna. That is called Siddha Pranali. That is the form of the soul in Siddha, in the perfected stage, when it is back in the spiritual world. Here the soul is covered by the subtle body. So the form of the soul is inconsequential. So if you go to moon, you wear an astronaut suit, right? Because you don't know how to breathe in the moon, you don't know how to get there. Now inside the astronaut suit, whether you're fair complexioned or dark complexioned, whether you're bald or whether you're 2 eyes or 4 eyes, doesn't matter. It's the suit that is the one that is interacting with everybody outside. So the soul has a eternal form, but it is completely covered when it is in the material world, and the process of liberation is that it discards this gross and subtle form when it goes back to the spiritual world. Right? Thinking of it, Prabhupada would explain it in the sense of, think of it that you go to a foreign planet, you go to the sun planet or the moon planet, right? And then in order to survive in that planet, you have to basically take on a form that is sustainable in that planet. That's the form that we have over here. But that does not mean that is our form. That also does not mean that which resides in that form is formless. It just means that form is covered. Yeah? Kelly?
That form we cannot see because we don't have the vision. With the material vision, we cannot see our real form. Although it is there. Maybe you can say it's in a different dimension or something. Like yogis, they exist in different dimensions. They say there are so many dimensions, but we cannot see our form. So it's only when we have perfected our lives that Krishna will reveal that form to us, and he'll also reveal our relationship with him, whatever it is. There could be so many, like my husband said, trees, leaves, cows, any animals, or maybe in a human form, in a body form, maybe as a friend, or those 5 relationships.
I remember once we were having this very similar discussion many years ago, like almost 20 years ago, and the person who was discussing saying that the spiritual soul has an eternal form in the spirit world, like a blade of grass. One person says, I do all this bhakti and I end up like a blade of grass. It doesn't sound very exciting to me. And the person who gave the lecture said, trust me, as a blade of grass, you will experience much more ecstasy than all the form that you have over here. Pyali.
I have a question, Prabhu. So, isn't it sometimes described that the soul is like a spark in you, and it is so small a spark that it's like thinner than
100th part of hair, tip
yeah,
of hair.
thinner than the hair, 1/100th of the hair.
1/10,000th part of the
Yeah,
tip of the hair.
1/10,000th part, so isn't that how typically, the
That's the
explanation-
size, but it does have a form.
Okay.
But at that particular time, even if it has a form, like it is no consequence to
visible
me,
to us.
right?
It's not visible to us.
Form of electron doesn't
And that also, I see you.
Sorry.
That also, when they talk about the form, the understanding is that the soul is infinitesimal. Because somebody once asked this question that they actually took the tip of the hair, they measured it, and they then divided it by 10,000, and it is a form that can actually be seen based on like more powerful microscopes, like electron microscope. So the person went and said that, so I should be able to see the soul because you can see these sizes. And then the understanding is that that particular verse, it's there. It's not a Bhagavad Gita verse, but Srila Prabhupada quotes it in the 2nd chapter. That verse is basically helping us understand that the soul is so small that you should not aspire to see the soul by your eyes. Right? You should not cut open a person trying to see the soul, or sometimes people say that the person died and I saw the soul go out. So it's just to disambiguate those kinds of notions. That it's infinitesimally small.
Your question is
No. I get it. It is like, it can be very, very small. But it's still
That is
small.
also in the condensed form, right? That is, when we actually go to spiritual world, our form can be big.
So a lot of questions that does the soul expand into the spiritual world? Prabhupada would say when you go back to the spiritual world, you will get all the answers automatically, right? Because does the tip of the hair expand into an elephant, and and is the soul, like if you look at it, is there an elephant inside the soul over here? And then Prabhupada would say, all of this will use. When you cross over the Viraj river divides the material and the spiritual world. So when you cross over the Viraj river and your subtle body is being cast away, then all these things will manifest to you on your own. But these are very interesting questions. What they do is that they increase in us the desire to go to the spiritual world in a more genuine way. Prabhu?
So after that, I don't know whether I should ask this question. I guess my question was, is there a relationship between the number of souls and number of living entities? So
Soul
does the
is
soul
living
always need a body?
In the material world, it needs a body. So the body could be either gross, like our body, or it could be subtle, like the bodies of demigods. They're subtle. They're
Ghosts, right? Ghosts are
or
also
ghosts,
subtle.
the higher creatures. Their body tends to be subtle. They have lesser growth. That's why the demigods, they're not bound by the rules of nature, material nature. They can travel. They can manifest and unmanifest. But they always need a body. The soul cannot exist without a body in the material world. The soul does not need a body in the spiritual world. There it exists in its original form.
So in that context, the follow-up question I would have is that how do you explain things like population growth, for example, when you are looking at it through the lens of soul and
So if you expand the lens and look at it from the perspective of several universes, so the soul is not married to a universe. You may be coming from another universe. Like at one point Prabhupada was saying that don't think dinosaurs are extinct. They've just moved to another universe. right? Because every form that is there is a result of a particular desire of a soul. Later on, Krishna says that based on the desire of a soul, the soul gets a particular material body with a particular set of characteristics, a set of senses, a set of limbs. So there are souls that probably desire that kind of a body. But the forms, they appear and they disappear in the universe, but in the whole material creation, they're just migrating. They're just coming. The world population has grown like to 7 billion. It probably means that in some other universe the population is depleting. Or if you look at it from from a more holistic perspective, that the first verse and the invocation verse in Isopnishad, Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnat Udashyate, is basically the mathematical equation of infinity. That infinity plus infinity is infinity, infinity minus infinity is infinity. And so the souls, because they're infinite souls, so they will never grow, or you will never understand that they grow, and you will never understand that they will deplete. And because Krishna is infinite, even though infinite souls come from him, he does not get depleted also. There was a devotee, I forget his name, the one, he was, at the time he became a devotee, he was doing his PhD in maths. And he kind of, at that point he was really not very interested in doing it, but he had to finish his thesis. So he wrote a thesis on 1 plus 1 is equal to 1 and 1 minus 1 is equal to 1. And then he used this verse in Isopnishad to justify it. And then he says, I'm surprised I didn't get the PhD. So there was a question from Akshay Prabhu for a while.
So Prabhuji, earlier in the lecture you mentioned about 26 elements.
Uh-huh.
Can you speak a little bit on that?
I don't know if I remember all of them, but there are the 5 gross elements: earth, water, fire, air, ether. There are the 3 subtle elements: mind, intelligence, and false ego. There are the 5 senses: eyes, nose, ear, skin, and smell. There are the 5 active senses: the hands, legs, tongue, anus, and genital. There are the 5 object of the senses, which is heat, light, fragrance, sense of touch. That 5. So if you have been adding it up, we are probably at 25, at 24 by now. And so the understanding is that as you remove all these, then you come to the 25th. So the soul through Sankhya is understood by induction, that it's not this, it's not this, it's not this, it's not this. Then what is it? Then you understand that what is left is the soul.
So Prabhuji, I had a question on that. Then are these like all elements in increasing order of importance? Because like when we start negating these things, or when we like start increasing our faith in stronger or higher elements, that's when we come to our soul, right? And then the highest one is Krishna or super soul.
So it depends on what you mean by understand importance. So there is no difference in terms. So there are senses that are more easily perceivable, the elements that are more easily perceivable than others. But I'm not sure what it means by important, like earth and water. So like if you look at the 5 elements, earth, water, fire, air, ether, earth is the grossest form. More subtle than earth is water. More subtle than water is air. More subtle than air is fire. More subtle than fire is ether. Right? So they go from gross to subtle. It's in the sense of perception there. Then from each of these 5 elements come the other 5 qualities. From earth comes fragrance. From water comes I don't remember. earth, water. From fire comes
Taste.
form.
Water taste.
From water comes taste. From fire comes form. From air comes fragrance. No, not fragrance.
Fragrance is from
Earth.
Prithvi,
Air,
Earth.
yeah. Ether I know is sound. So then for each of these 5, there are 5 senses that receive them. Right? Then for form there is eyes. For smell there is nose. For each of the senses that we receive, there are senses that manipulate them. So that's how the material world grows. So it's explained through Sankhya there, and of course then it goes in a lot more details, and I may be also telling you something that are wrong because I'm just speaking out of memory there. But then you get the sense of how the material world begins. In the Bhagavatam it's explained that how it is initially the whole thing is pradhan, which everything is basically indistinguishable. And then when you see how pradhan starts distilling itself, you see all these elements appearing from subtle to gross to more gross, right? And that's how the whole pradhan becomes the Mahatattva. The Mahatattva comes the universe, and the universe is basically then just hanging around doing nothing. Krishna enters it in the universe in the form of time, and the jivas come to the glance of Mahavishnu, and then the universe happens. So the one thing that is there in the material world that is not there in the spiritual world is time. So that is the special dispensation or curse that is there in the material world. That it's a dispensation because it limits the misery. It's a curse because it limits the enjoyment. Right? I think one thing that I share is that one of the most encouraging and discouraging phrases is "this too shall pass." Right? So what is it predicated on? Time.
Right.
If you're having a good time, "this too shall pass" is basically saying that their good time is going to come to an end. If you're having a bad time, it's words of encouragement. "This too shall pass" means good times will come. That is Krishna's special dispensation. But ultimately, time is, in the material world, time is death. So even though it may transit as good and bad, ultimately it is bad. Except for Sukdev Goswami says that except for those who chant the name of Krishna, with every rising of the sun and every setting of the sun, their lives are being cut short. So ultimately time is death. Every breath that we take, it is pulling us one step closer to our death. That's one of the things that the yogis do. That it comes in one of the later verses. It is so they figure that every breath that we take takes us close to death. So let's stop breathing. So the yogis are able to hold their breath for years and years together. They don't breathe. And that's why they live for thousands and thousands of years. Is that okay? Mataji had a question?
Prabhu, as you explained that Vishnu can create so many universes.
Yeah.
And in second chapter, Krishna says that souls don't take birth and souls don't die.
Mm-hmm.
So how are they created? Like they are infinite, but where they came from?
They all come from Krishna.
From Krishna.
They come from Krishna. The only thing that the Acharya says, that because we are so conditioned to time, for everything we want a starting and an ending point.
Right.
But time is absent in the spiritual world. There is no starting, there is no ending. The souls are always there, and the souls will always be there. But they come from Krishna. Yeah?
But I think you're trying to ask is what happens to those souls when Like when you're saying creation and annihilation, right?
Right.
So when creation means that they enter the universe, and annihilation means that they enter into Vishnu's body. That. And they rest over there till the next creation.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's the same, right? Annihilation means that they
Yeah, when the universe gets destroyed, not even when the universe gets destroyed, between every yuga there is a sandhi and the universe is empty at the time. So at that time, of course, the souls enter the body of Brahma. But when Brahma dies, then the souls enter into the body of Mahavishnu. And they go into what is known as, I believe it is called Shishupka. So Shishupka is like suspended animation. So they stay in that with all, but these souls have the subtle body, they're not in the pure form. So the subtle body is holding all the desires. And in that form they stay in the body of Mahavishnu for billions and billions of years. And when Mahavishnu breathes out, then the universes are created. And when the Pradhan is becoming Mahatattva, then the glance of Mahavishnu, it carries the souls in. So and when the souls get the bodies, then all the desires, all the karma that is stored in the subtle body, all that gets activated again.
So they say that one mein ek ho jaye. So isn't it the same thing or different?
It's kind of. So we see a lot of these phrases, they have some understanding and some misunderstanding. So ek ho jayega, yes, we enter into the body of Mahavishnu, but we never become Mahavishnu. Right? So there is that oneness that yes, because there is such an, you are part of his body. So there is that oneness. But we never become, Vishnu is Vishnu and soul is soul. Not forget about Vishnu, we never even become connected to any other soul. Every soul remains is eternally distinct by itself. Because if it was not, then what would be its position in the spiritual world? Think of it this way, right? I am a soul in the spiritual world. I come down to the material world. Here I combine with 3-4 souls and go back. So then who am I? Right? Maybe one soul was a cow, one soul was a tree, one soul was a grass. So I go as a tree growing on a cow with grass growing. It defies that simple logic. It's more complicated than that. But the eternality of the soul, that's the very first thing that Krishna in 2.12 he said, Nato evam jatu nasham, nato meva janadipa. That never was the time when you did not exist. Never was the time when you will not exist. And all these kings and me. He makes this distinction that each one of you is distinct, and I am God, I am distinct also. So don't have any notions that you will come and become God also. So he's disambiguating that notion. Yeah? Somebody had a hand up. I'll just take Anirudh's question.
Yeah. So all the souls are like when Brahma burns and dies, all souls commit with Earth or any planet, and any of the universe or planet destroyed, then move to another planet, and this process goes on. So when we work, when we perform some good work or devotional performance or something, and how that is doing something good or something bad, because every soul is directly going to those processes. So how our karma is related to that?
So good activities, so there are pious activities and there is devotional service, right? So pious activities are activities that are performed on the material platform. You give somebody charity, you speak the truth, you serve the elders. So these are all pious activities. All these activities that you perform on a Prabhu, can you go a little bit back? Thank you. So all these activities that you perform, like they're sukriti at a material level, so they all in your subtle body. The subtle body keeps track of all of that, right? And the subtle body never gets destroyed. The subtle body is materially immortal. As long as you are in the material world, your subtle body is immortal. You may change gross bodies billions and billions of time. You may live in the material world for trillions of years, different universes, in the body of Mahavishnu, in the body of Brahma. Subtle body is always the same. That is the one that is carrying all the desires, all the reactions to your past sinful and pious activities. When you start performing devotional service, then your relationship gets established with Krishna. Right. Now Krishna is keeping track of all your activities. And of course, how Krishna does it, that Krishna is God, he can do that. But the difference is that every material activity that you perform, because by nature, everything in the material world is temporary. It goes away. So even the reactions of the activities that you form go away. You perform pious activities, when you enjoy, they are gone. If you perform sinful activities, when you suffer, they are gone. So all the activities, everything that is material is being created and being destroyed. That is why we are so conditioned to the whole concept that birth and death. That's the nature of the material world. Comes into existence, ceases to exist. When you perform spiritual activities, never goes away. Because Krishna is taking care of it. So there is nothing that you can do to take away the spiritual credit that you earn. You may enjoy based on that for billions of years, it still stays as it is. You may perform billions of sinful activities, it stays as it is. Because the spiritual activity is attributed to your spirit soul, not to the subtle body. The subtle body is material. That is why it is temporary. The spiritual activities, they are attributed to your spirit soul. So every time that you give obeisances to the deities, every time that you chant Hare Krishna, every time that you serve a devotee, all those activities are eternal by nature, and they will stay with you for eternity. Whether you are in material world, spiritual world, Mahavishnu, whatever it is, they stay with you. Does that help? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Good.
is that what Paramatma always desires also?
So Paramatma is Krishna. Krishna has only one desire, that you should come back to him. So that's why the Paramatma is always in all of us. We have this desire to perform spiritual activities. That intrinsic desire is there, but the subtle body, it manipulates it different. Once Prabhupada was walking in New York, and he saw like there was a woman, and she had a dog on a leash, and she was walking the dog. And then after some time, Prabhupada saw that she had bent down and she was cleaning something. And Prabhupada said, "What's that woman doing?" And the disciple said, "She's picking the stool of the dog because they don't allow to litter." And then Prabhupada said that, "Look at this. This is the nature of the soul. That the desire to serve is so strong that if nobody else is there to serve, they'll pick the stool of a dog with their own hands." Right? But essentially it's the desire to serve. That all of us, because it's the nature of the soul to serve, all of us are frantically looking for opportunities to serve. We are serving our families, we are serving our elders, we are serving the society. If we are in the mode of ignorance, we are serving our senses, we are serving our desires. But that service, it's an essential quality of the soul. When it is properly directed, we serve Krishna and his devotees. Yeah? Did I miss anybody? Shivani? Sorry.
So Prabhu, in one of the verses, Prabhupada said, and as you pointed out, like it says, man proposes and God disposes. Right? The Paramatma helps to, achieve us or get our desires fulfilled. But on the contrary, or maybe there is an interplay between them. We say that modes of material nature. Krishna is saying, "I am not the door. You are not the door." And modes of material nature.
Correct. So that saying that man proposes, God disposes, That becomes complete when you say man proposes, God disposes based on what man deserves. Right? Because I can propose to Paramatma that make me a millionaire tomorrow. Unlikely, because I don't have that sukriti. I don't have those pious activities to do. Second point that you make, it's a more subtle point, is that if Paramatma is deposing, doesn't it become also the doer? Right? So this question is answered in the 18th chapter. When Krishna, he builds the whole understanding of Prakriti, soul, Paramatma, and desires, will. He builds everything that is needed, and then he starts explaining to Arjuna how do activities actually happen. So Krishna reveals this a little bit like blind men looking at elephants. So everything that he says is true, but then he brings everything together. It's like blind man. Somebody saying the elephant is like a snake, or like a pillar, or it's like a rope. All true. So when Krishna is saying that the modes of material nature are acting, true. When Krishna says that this Paramatma is permitting everything, it is true. When he says the soul is desiring, it is true, but not the full truth. Right? And then he brings forward by 18th chapter, he then explains that. So stay tuned till 18th chapter. Okay.